Okay, welcome to my first ever animated cheetah tutorial. You'll see that I've dialed up the size of the mouse to make it easy to see what I'm doing, and I'm going to try and talk you through every step of this process. This tutorial is about box modeling with symmetry. The fundamental mechanism for modeling in the new world of subdivision surfaces is box modeling with symmetry. It's called box modeling because you almost always start with a box. So we'll start with a box, and we're going to make a biplane out of this because I've got an obsession with silly biplanes. I think it's a result of too many Snoopy cartoons. So the first thing I want to do is I want to increase the number of X sections in this box here. So let me just drag this view out so you can see it a bit better. To 2, simply so that it will be possible to split the cube in half. So now I'm going to make the cube editable. And you'll see immediately that you can now see it broken up into faces, edges and so on. I'm going to go into, I'm just changing selection modes here. This is select object, this is select faces. I'm going to select faces mode. And I'm going to go to area select mode. And this entire tutorial is going to be done in the perspective camera view. And I'm rotating the view whenever I feel like it by option dragging. I can option middle click to pan, and I can option scroll in and out to zoom, but mostly I'll just be option rotating, option dragging. So I'm in area select mode, which means I can just drag a lasso around things or a marquee, and I'm going to hit the delete key, bang, it's gone. So now we have half a cube. We want that half back again, but we want it to be automatically forced to be symmetrical, so I'm going to use the symmetry modifier. That's the green symmetry modifier, not the yellow symmetry creator, but the green symmetry modifier. And I'm going to drag it into the box, and so you now see that I have my original cube back. Now I'm going to select the box again, and I'm going to go back into face select mode, and you'll see that everything is much as it was before, except that the new cube is forced to be symmetrical. So if I go and make a change, I clicked on the select tool and then I selected this face. Now I'm going to click on the transform tool and I'm going to switch it into tweak mode, which allows me to change the thing I select on the fly. It's very, very handy in this kind of operation. So you'll see when I drag this out, the other side drags out. When I rotate it, the other side rotates. When I rescale it, the other side rescales. So it's been forced to be symmetrical. Now I can just undo those operations because Cheetah has a very, very robust undo. And I would never have done what I just did if I didn't have it, because then I'd have to start over again. Now I'm going to perform a ring cut. Now what a ring is if I go into ring select, I can select a ring, which is a sequence of kind of parallel edges. So you'll see that it's selected all around there. If I click this edge, it will select all around here. And basically the ring is detected by going to the edge, the end points of each edge, and then seeing what edges are joined to it by a set of other edges. I'm going to perform a ring cut, and what a ring does is it cuts a series of edges as parallel as it can. So I go to the tools, polygon, ring cut, or more likely I would just do it by right clicking in the view. And I'm going to look for where I can cut this ring, and you'll see that this little vertex which I'm doing moves with the mouse, the little red dot, and I'm going to go about 3/4 of the way down. Bang. Okay, so now I want to return to tweak mode and select this edge, and this is going to become the wing of my biplane. So you, imagine, if you will, that this is the fuselage of the biplane, very crude, where the pilot is sitting, and the wing is just below the pilot. I've decided that. It may or may not be true in an actual working biplane, but this is my silly Snoopy style biplane. I'm just going to drag out the wing. I don't care if I'm terribly accurate, and obviously this is kind of a very stubby looking plane, but there's a wing. And now I'm going to click here to select one face and shift click to select the next face. Again, I'm going to pick the cover tool. By the way, I use the cover tool to make that wing. I'm going to extrude out here. Now, there's another tool which does this kind of thing called the extrude tool, but I don't like it, so I'm using the cover tool. I won't go into the reasons right here, but the cover tool allows me to stay in tweak mode, which is very useful. So I'm going to go do the similar thing, click, shift click, let me click over here. Click here, shift click there. Cover tool, which inconveniently is way down there. I'm rotating the view while I'm in the middle of this process so that I can get that handle accurately. And that's the beginning of the fuselage. And now I'm going to do another cover, and this time I'm going to go back a fairly long way. I'm scrolling out, option scrolling, and this is going to be the tail, which needs to shrink a bit, so I'm just grabbing these edges and tweaking them around. So I was click and shift click on the edge, and now I'm going to click and shift click on these edges and bring them in, and now you start to see a biplane, except it only has one wing. I'm going to create a second wing now. I'm just going to add another cube. You notice this cube has been created inside this box because that was what I currently had selected. That's actually kind of convenient. I'm going to add an X section, and I'm going to drag the cube up, and I'm going to make it editable. And again, from this view, I'm going to go into Area Select and destroy the left side. That was a delete key. And now, back into the tweak tool, select this face, and bring it down to make the wing thinner. Now you'll notice that because this is a separate box, although it's inside this hierarchy, it's not being symmetried. So what I'm going to do is click this, and my previous attempt, I actually spent a good chunk of the tutorial trying to find this command, import children. And what it does is it takes this bottle here, which is a child, and it brings it into here. It leaves the original behind, which is kind of inconvenient, so I'll have to delete it. And it doesn't work, it doesn't have any effect on modifiers, it just has effect on other polygon meshes. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say import children. And now, because this thing contains a copy of this thing, it's being symmetried as well. And I'm going to delete the original, just to prove that it's no longer needed. And now, I can go and select this face and drag it out. And voila, a very low-res biplane. Now a couple more things. It needs a tail, and I'm going to ruthlessly use ring cut here. Now ring cut, especially later in a model, starts costing you a lot of polygons, and so you have to use it sparingly, but we're pretty low polygon count now. So I need to decide how long the tail is going to be, which is about there, and how wide it's going to be, so it's about there. So that polygon there is going to become the tail. And you'll notice that those edges are kind of parallel, or as proportionately far along each edge as the proportion here from here to here remains constant, which means I'm going to have to try a funky looking polygon here for the tail. And on the tail elevators, same thing, so I'm just going to punch another ring cut there. And again, I'll go and select this polygon. I choose cover. And up. That looks about right. I'll click this one, cover, and out. I'm going to straighten out that edge because it was parallel to the original face. So, and a lot of biplanes have kind of almost triangular tails, so I'm just going to take this edge here and drag it down a bit. And you'll see that that kind of looks like a biplane. It's not great, but it's not terrible. And what I'll also do is this thing here is going to become the engine, and I'm going to drag it like so, this one like so, and this one, oops, this one like so. And you can see that's where the engine can go, and I can use cover. And cover works in both directions. I can go out, but I can also go in. And you can see that, you know, it's not the world's worst biplane model. And I could also create a compartment here for the pilot, much the same way as I did the engine. So I'm going to drag that back a bit, so it's not directly under the wing, and drag this one back a bit. And take this one out a bit. Whoops. I use undo without thinking, so you need to, when you see this mysterious something happening and then unhappening, it's because I've used undo. I click here, again cover, and then move it down with a little pilot compartment in there. Now, you may be asking yourself at this point, if you're not familiar with box modeling, what the heck is he doing? This is a really crappy looking biplane. I would never put my name on a biplane model this pathetically crude. And neither would I. What I'm going to do now is use subdivision smoothing to make this a much more interesting model. So I take this, And now, instantly, the subdivision actually, just by luck, appeared inside the box. And you'll see the plane is actually suddenly looks really cool. It may not be the effect that you were going for, but it's kind of the effect I was going for. And because this original box is still live, this is all still editable. So for example, the front of the plane looks really square. I don't want that. So I can take this edge here and I can just tweak it in until I like it actually go along this entire edge here. And say, look, I want it to go in and I want it to go down. You know, that's pretty nice. And I can take this vertex here. I want the wing to stay where it is, so I'm not going to drag that in. But I can pull that in. And similarly, I might not want the wings to look quite so much like surfboards. I can take this face here and extrude it out a bit. You can see that it suddenly straightens out, but I actually want to pull this out. And you'll see that wing now looks kind of more reasonably shaped. And I can do the same thing over here. The tail looks pretty good actually. Might drag this vertex up a little bit. The more precise the mesh that you're smoothing, the more control you'll have over how it ends up smoothed. But you really want to do is make the mesh as simple as possible to start with, because you can get the best effects by moving things around early in the modeling process. Then as you want to refine the model, you can add more to the control mesh and thus have finer control over specific areas. So for example, I might not like the very curved way that this wing is coming out of the plane here, and so I can add some detail at that point to make it more abrupt. Or I can also go here and I can say I want to crease that edge there, and then there'll be a crease on the model. I don't actually like that, but I just wanted to show you. So that in a nutshell is subdiv modeling with symmetry. And what you see here is down here in the object browser. This is pretty much what you'll see a hell of a lot of. You'll have something called box, because that's what it started out as, although it's no longer a box, it's a raw polygon mesh. You'll have a symmetry modifier and you'll have a subdivision modifier. You get subtly different results depending on the order in which these things are performed. It doesn't really matter all that much, but one of them you symmetry the boring mesh, and then you subdivide the result. The other one you subdivide and then you symmetry it. It can have different effects, especially on the seam around here. I'll do one more thing just before I sign off, and that is I'm going to put a little dent in the wing here, which is where the pilot would stand up and also be able to reach a machine gun or something. So I'm going to go and do a ring cut modifier, ring cut over here, and I'm going to perform one cut here and one cut here, and then go back into tweak mode. I'm just going to grab this face and drag it like so. And now we have a pretty classic biplane design. No landing gear, but I think you could figure out how to do that from here on in. And that's all there is to this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it.